All right, welcome back to the IIY podcast. Today I got a new guest on today. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Hey, what's going on? They call me Stevie Bullets. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, suburb Cicero. I'm doing a documentary on my life. It's a redemption story. I got a Facebook page, My Way, the Cicero Way, Stevie Bullets story. Basically, my story was, going to prison. I was shot 11 times, more occasions. 2 times I was shot in the head. I was involved in the street gang in my town. It was, mostly Italians, whites, Irish guys in the suburb Cicero. That's so if you're not familiar with it, Cicero is a suburb where Al Capone had his headquarters in Chicago. So most of his bootlegging and stuff back then, during Prohibition, that's where like a lot of the gangster stuff started. Al Capone and the Chicago outfit, and it just went from generation to generation. Mostly Cicero back in that day was like when I was growing up was all Italian neighborhood. So that's how I got linked up and that I was involved with, which is Wall Street player. I'm no longer active. I have 3 kids and I'm married. I've been in redemption. I've been out of the joint for 10 years. I went down 3 times, state prison here in Illinois. Medium max joints, usually, never really went to no minimums. Fortunately, no maximum security prison. But, I accumulated a lot of arrests and I had a real bad history with the police in my town. Probably like 20 years ago, during a drug transaction, one of my homies that got killed by police. And, he didn't have a gun on him or anything like that. The cop was never charged with me. And basically, everything in my town is like code of silence. So what happens in the streets stays in the streets, nobody talks, and there's a lot of corruption. So Cicero was the town that I was raised in, and that's where I, was gangbanging in the streets. I had a lot of different appearance back then, shaved head, and I was a lot more into the streets then. Nowadays I'm a father, so a lot more reserved. Yeah,
Right.
well, because now I work every day, 9 to 5. I got a union job with the Teamsters 703. I work for a great company here in Chicago, #1 produce here, Anthony Morano. I had so many opportunities when I got out of prison that, that's basically like where my story kind of started was, I was one of those people that was in the streets that was like public enemy #1 in my town. The cops hated me. Like, and today, a lot of them shake my hand. I mean, there's a few that got grudges because there was so many things that was going on. Like I said, the cop, one of my friends that I ran with, he got killed by the police. That was pretty dramatic. I was 21 years old at the time. Then, of course, like I said, I was involved with people myself. I ended up getting shot, like I said, 11 times, twice in my head, all body shots, above the waist. So, I was just really fortunate. And then, in and out of prison, I went through a horrible drug addiction because, like once I was involved with that stuff, and like I said, back then I was really into the street, like shooting and, all kinds, robbery, burglary, armed robbery, everything you could think of. And my way of like getting away from that mentally and like dealing with it and seeing like friends be killed, I would resort to drug use. And, that would also make me more aggressive when I would go out and do like whatever, I hit, lick, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah, and
because we were always like,
I was just gonna say,
go ahead.
oh my bad, it's kind of cutting out, but I was just saying, with your story, kind of tell us, from, your early childhood, and then, where you kind of jumped into the, the point with the gang, and then, when it started getting serious.
Oh, okay. So, I'm half Italian. My mother's Italian. My father's Irish. I grew up in Cicero. So most of my relatives on my mom's side we're legit Italian people. And then, I had a couple uncles that ran with the Italian mafia, Chicago outfit. And my uncles were part of that 42 game, which is the original, or the outfit with like Prohibition. My grandfather and two of my uncles had ran, and it was like pre-era, like Al Capone. And then, like you hear stories from relatives and, they kind of like brag about those stories. So you kind of hear it. And then I remember my grandmother, she even had told me, because she had nice things. She was helping my parents out a lot. So, I was like wondering where the money was coming from. She was buying cars. She didn't have a job. She was pretty much a homebody. My grandfather was already passed away at the time. And she told me, that my grandfather was part of the Chicago syndicate. I'm thinking like church organization, something like that. But it was, my mom, yeah, that's what happened. Because, I'm a kid. I
Yeah,
don't,
you don't know that.
understand this. Right. So I asked my mother, because she's law abiding, she's a nurse and legit. She doesn't condone that stuff. She because she was Italian, she despised Al Capone and that type of stereotype of Italians. And, she explained this to me, and I always remembered it. And she just basically told me, that Chicago syndicate was like the mafia outfit. And then, I asked her, what my grandfather's involvement with them was, and was basically on the outside, but he ran card games. And then it wasn't until recently that I had looked more into my grandfather's background and seen that, he was more than just like an associate and stuff like that, because he had ties to, like in Chicago, we have Phil and Dericio, Action Jackson. And we started talking about this because my uncle was actually alive. He was 75 years old. He just recently passed away. And he had, when I was younger, he had ran the clubs for some like high-ranking members of our Cicero. Well, this guy, James Marcello, he had a strip club in my town. And, he had it for years. He's doing life in prison now in Florence, Colorado, Supermax. And yeah, and my uncle had worked for him as a doorman. So like when my uncle was working for him in my teenage years, I remember going over there, kind of meeting these guys. I didn't know who they were at the time. But like growing up in my town, there was a lot of these guys. Like I said, it was mostly Italian neighborhood, and there's some Polish and stuff like that. But the guys that ran around my area were like Italians, and they had, you could kind of tell these guys like that kind of stuff stood out. They had nicer cars, they had real jewelry, they just stood out, like, and then just the way they're like body language, the way they talk, stuff like that. And then, these were my influences as a kid. And then I got introduced to like the street gangs. And then probably like third, fourth grade, my neighbor was involved with the Latin Kings. So that's like a bigger Chicago gang than pretty much everybody familiar with around the country. And, that was kind of like my first taste of the street. But at that time, I was too young to be recruited in like any street gang. And then when I got a little bit older, I think probably like high school. I don't know what it was back then. I was probably like 8 years old. I was really young. Yeah, I was really young, but I really wanted, I was enticed by that type of stuff at a young age because of my relatives. And then, as I got older, that's what I gravitated towards. That's what, I looked, that was my role models. So like when I started seeing like gangsters and gang bangers and stuff like that, for some reason that's kind of what excited me. And I remember seeing like the gang graffiti and wanting to imitate it and draw it and stuff like that. And then, like I said, my neighbors across the street, they were, the oldest brother was involved, and me, that was what was cool. So then when I got older to like my high school years, that's where you get more like peer pressure and stuff. And I wasn't really peer pressured into it because I joined right away, as soon as they asked. And I just happened to get involved with the gang that I was involved with because of the fact that that was my area. This is where I grew up with. This is where I had like attachment to it. So it made sense for me to join the gang that I joined. It was mostly white guys, but it was Italian, Irish, Serbian, and these guys were, brutal. They were like what they call the farm league of the Chicago outfit. And if you look more into that, like I said, you Google it, you'll see what I mean. There's a lot into it. And I'm not saying all the guys are like that, and I'm not saying I'm affiliated with the outfit or nothing like that. But there's ties to it. I was influenced by it.
Yeah.
And
Did they
when I
jump you
started
in?
going to prison, yeah, when I got involved with the gang, I got jumped in. I don't know, it was probably like 12 guys. It was a lot of guys, brutal ass. Yeah, I remember that. And that was probably like around 1992. I was a young guy. And as soon as I got into the gang, the first thing that I wanted to do was shoot, grab a pistol, start shooting, And I shot a few guys. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say I killed anybody on the air or nothing like that, but I definitely shot guys. And that was kind of where the beef started with these two. I wasn't innocent. And that was the reason, which kind of played a part in my friend getting killed, was before this had all happened. Like I said, I was really in the streets, committing crimes, pissing the police off, talking shit to the police. So they had a reason. It wasn't like they were just harassing me. I mean, it started to harass me once, once they got to be familiar with me. And it was, now that I'm older, I realized that, they were going way above what they should have. They should have just charged me because I was a kid and the cops were very brutal. Oh yeah, they were very brutal, and they wouldn't even be able to do that stuff nowadays, with the body cams and stuff like that. So when I see like George, yeah, I mean, I see certain things like the George Floyd thing, it does hit a nerve. And, even though I'm not black or anything, but I've been in that situation where one of my friends had got killed and he was Latino. And I knew when he got shot, that it wasn't because he was Latino that he got shot, but it was because he was a gang member and he was with me. And because we were in the middle of a drug transaction, these events occurred and it resulted in the cop shooting him. And, the cop has to live with whether or not he intentionally did it or it was just because he was scared and thought maybe he had a gun. By the way, they never recovered a gun on this. He was shot in the back. Yeah, and I mean, oh yeah. And me and this officer that had done the shooting had a prior run-in. We were friends at the time. That's the other bad part of
you were friends with
me
him?
And the officer that, yeah, we had went to the same grammar school together and we lived within a block of each other. And then he became a police officer and I eventually became a gang member. And it was rough because we were friends. And then, he ran into me in the street one day. He had his talk with me about feeling disrespected because I had flashed gang signs at an opposing gang. And he was like, well, listen, I can arrest you and I should arrest you, but I'm not going to arrest you. But just the fact that you're throwing up gang signs right in front of me is a lot of disrespect, and he was mad about it. At that time, I didn't understand it. And, I was like, pretty much like, fuck. And, I didn't really care. And yeah, because I had a chip on my shoulder and it wasn't a big deal to me. So a week later, he runs into me and I was involved in the drug. He gets the call and he was the, responding officer. When he responds to the call and everything, it was a heated moment. I actually took off the other way. So I didn't actually see the shooting. And my homie and one of his guys ran the other way. My intention was to, he had to pick who to go, me or him. And he went after those guys. And when they were jumping the fence, he said that he thought cops are chasing him, hopping the fence. They end up shooting. That's what the report was. And that old. And like I said, my friend had lost his life. But I mean, that was just.
Did you hear that gunshot?
No.
You never.
No, I was the other way. Like, yeah, I was getting low. I was gone. I knew something bad was going down though because there was a lot of police presence, in the area, and somehow I had kind of dodged them. Like, and what happened was, yeah. So what happened was I had got to the bar and I called my dad on the payphone and he told me that the homicide was there looking for me. And I, he didn't want to talk on the phone about what was happening. And what he told me was, like I said, the homicide was looking for me, and he didn't want to talk on the phone, that he'd come pick me up, and he put me on a plane. And I went to Tennessee, and yeah, I got out of the way.
Okay, so you're on a plane. What's going through your head?
Well, I'm thinking that, my friend had killed somebody, that homicide was looking for, him for a murder.
Oh.
And, I didn't realize it. Yeah, I didn't even know that he was dead at this time. I didn't know he was shot or anything like that. I just knew that the homicide was looking for me, and I was trying to get the hell out of there. And like I said, there was a lot of police everywhere. So I knew something bad had happened. And my dad had me on a plane. I was in Tennessee in like 2 hours, Nashville. I get to my uncle's house, and, by this time, my sister, because what happened was when we arrived, we were by my sister's house. And like I said, we were in the middle of a drug transaction. And when the police pulled up, my sister was there. So she was a witness. So they took her to the police station for questioning, about what she had seen and what occurred. And it wasn't until the following morning that she told me that my friend got killed. I'm like, no. They were looking for her. Yeah, I didn't understand what was going on at this point. Like, no. They killed your friend. And I'm like, how was that possible? When they were running through the gangway, he had a gun and they shot him. And, sure enough, that's what had happened.
So what did that make you feel?
Basically,
did that make you want to pursue the gang life really more?
Well, no. At that point, I felt bad because somebody was dead now. And I knew that it was going to be bad for me because now he's dead. Now the cops, how are they going to be? They're looking for me. I didn't know what they were going to charge me with, or, I didn't know what was going on. So I kind of stayed down there for a short time, and I got in trouble down there. And it was just a local charge because I stayed there maybe like a month or two, or just to avoid the police. Like a battery or something.
Oh, so it was a fight or something?
Fight was, yeah, making a threat to somebody. I had, like I said, I got a little apartment, had a maintenance job, and that was the plan to kind of stay down there because, like, I knew at this point, like, because, like I said, the cops, there were so many things going on with the police that they basically were telling my parents that, they thought I was involved with harassing a police officer, making threats to a cop who lived in the area, police officer. See, that's what it was where I lived in Berwyn, there were a lot of police officers that lived around me. So they weren't comfortable with me living in the neighborhood and doing things that I was doing, which I can understand now.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I was into everything like burglary, carjacking, armed robbery, pretty much anything with that, happens with street life. And these cops were kind of really gunning. And I was in and that's how the whole story went, was like I was in the police station like every other day, 2 or 3 times a week. They got real familiar with, to the
Didn't
point
you get arrested 300
some
times?
of them, oh yeah, maybe more.
Really? How the hell?
Yeah. It's real deep, my story. So that's another part of it is that now that I'm 43 years old, that you'll understand that there was a lot of harassment going on. And if I was arrested 300 times, and like I said, 15 felonies that we found, which is true. I got some of the arrests. There were so many arrests that I couldn't even print them all out. It's like a Bible. Yeah, and that's not even exaggerating. And the reason that I know this is because, and this is another part of my story, was I married my wife, and her sister works for the clerk's office in the court system. And I was actually charged. Yeah, embarrassingly enough, so my last sentence was a 6-year sentence, and it was aggravated fleeing and looting the Cicero keys. Like just taking them. I didn't want to stop. Uh, and there were other things involved, drugs, or other shit. So long story short, I get to the courthouse. My wife's sister, she was my girlfriend then. Her sister works in court. So I go in front of the judge. I don't know if this is court. I gotta go. And her sister's not a fan of me. I just go in. I plead out real quick because I already know I'm gonna be found guilty because they caught me dead to the wrong. So I know what time it is. I just take a 6-year sentence real quick. I pay my debt to society. Yeah.
How much
I
did you
took
actually serve then
about
on that 6-year sentence?
2.5 out of 6.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn. So not
So it
too
wasn't that
major.
bad, but it was, yeah, nothing too major. And I was good with it because that was enough time to kind of get my mind back to where it should be. And
What were some things you did in there?
that's where, yeah. Well, I went to school the entire time. I went to college. I took advantage of it, which was a good thing. I didn't just waste my time, working
Good.
out. And, a lot of guys get to the joint. They don't do nothing.
What'd you
Hang
study?
out, lift weights. Huh?
Oh,
I did a lot of vocational.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. So what I did was I got my GED the first time. Second time I went down there, I decided to go back to school and start college. And I picked up some vocational audio maintenance. I don't know. There's a few other ones. It's all free. So
Damn, yeah,
I
take
don't know.
advantage of all that shit.
Oh yeah, college. Yeah, because now if you look at college, it's same books and same material, same tests that they take, throughout the state.
Yeah.
So you could do it in prison, you could do it out there. It's all the same. I mean, of course, it's better to be in a classroom, but
Yeah.
when you're in the prison, you don't have nothing but time. So I took advantage of it. I did vocational, a bunch of skills, and then I mean that's not what I do for a living, but it was just getting my mind right. And then when I had got out, well, like I said, at that time I was just dating my wife. She was my girlfriend. I go in front of her sister. I get a 6-year sentence. I start writing her every day because there was something about her. Obviously, I married her, got 3 children with her, and that's where I started to plant the seed. Was I wanted to be with this girl. I was starting to get older. I was in my late 20s then. And I didn't have no kids or nothing. So I had already been to prison twice or 3 times at this point. So a lot of my friends got killed. I had 2 of my best friends killed. One was killed by the police. The other was killed by opposing gang. And it was just, it wasn't looking good for me. And I didn't want to keep going back to prison. So, I started writing my wife every day, writing her. She wasn't, at that time, it was just my girlfriend. I got a lot of time. Yeah, so I would be corresponding with her and writing her every day pretty much. Twice a day, and like when you're in jail, you talk a lot, good game. And she kind of just stayed with me and then listened to my phone calls and stuff. So it wasn't real serious then. And I ended up getting out after doing the 2.5 years and stuff. And she ended up getting pregnant shortly after that. And at that time we were kind of unstable, but we ended up getting married. Our son, who's 10 years old now, is autistic. It's a good thing. He's doing really good. He's at a great school here in Illinois. So he's in a good place. He has a good team. He's achieved everything that we've set, like as far as goals and stuff like that. But that was another reason for me to change my life, was as soon as she had got pregnant and stuff, I had to walk away from a lot of people and a lot of things, and fight a lot of demons that I had, because with my history and everything, it wasn't looking good. And at the time, the cops and they had, it was just crazy. And then when I married my wife, her sister, like I said, was the clerk on the case. So she actually seen me, you know, she wasn't a fan of me. And her husband was police officer of the town that I
Damn.
was, you know, causing all my problems. Yeah. So imagine the odds of that. And, you know, I didn't know how they were going to take to me at first, but he was like pretty open minded about it, you know, willing to give me a chance. So when I got out, he was the first person that offered me a job.
What was
And,
it?
you know, he said, hey, it was a custodial job,
That's
pushing a
good.
broom
Yeah.
in a warehouse for a produce company in Chicago. But that was good. That was great because I had something stable and it was every day, took care of my bills. This point, I wasn't totally out of the game. You know, I was kind of lingering because I wasn't making a lot of money. Like I said, I was only a janitor. So at that time I was selling cocaine, pushing bills in large amounts, you know, because I was thinking, you know, this is what's gonna, you know, take care of me and my family, even though I don't want to, you know, risk going to jail. I have an autistic son. It was just a lot of pressure. And we ended up having my daughter like shortly after. And then I started realizing that, you know, it was like I was looking at life because I had so many arrests and so many convictions and so many felonies that on my record that even the smallest crime would have put me away for at least 20 to life. You know, they were getting, yeah, they labeled me as habitual criminal, which sounds horrible. You know, I've never been convicted or charged with murder or nothing like that. But like what you would think with the way my rap sheet looks, like I was like a serial killer or something like that.
Yeah.
And I only knew that because, like I said, my sister-in-law is a clerk. And I had to pull up my file for my record one time, and she was like, "Oh, you know, telling me more about it." I'm like, "Yeah, nobody has a file that thick." I go, "So that's another part." Yeah, I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. But the reason for that is because I was being harassed. A lot of cops didn't like me, didn't like what I was doing. So it was a continual big back and forth where they were arresting me, charging me with nonsense. A lot of those charges didn't stick.
Yeah. But you
Because
made
you
it.
would think if you had that many arrests, I would
Yeah.
be sitting in jail a lot
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah. But
You know,
you kind of made it,
with
you
that.
posed for
So
that
that,
picture, right? Because, you know, being, you know, you made it easier for them to, you know, harass you. You know what I mean? Because once you're in that picture,
oh
you know,
yeah,
posing for it, they're like, oh, let's get this guy. You know, we can get away with fucking around with him. And, you know, people aren't going to believe what he
oh
says.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh right, right. And see, that was another thing was these cops got familiar with me like that. So
Yeah.
while I'm a juvenile, that's how it started. Some of them liked me, some of them didn't like me. And then some of them did like me. And then when I got to be older, there were some of them that were kind of like on the other side of the law as well. Because you know, there's a lot of cops that are corrupt. Where I'm from, it's really common. So some of them drew me into their clique. Hey, you know, we got this, you know, this thing that we're gonna do. You know, maybe you could lure us to a house and we'll split the proceeds. You know, we'll go in there. You know, yeah, it was real serious shit. It was real serious shit that I was involved with cops. And that was another thing was when I started my documentary, these and some of them been charged, some of them went to jail, caught, you know, because they were paying both sides of the law. And that was kind of how it went. And that's how serious these dudes were.
So,
And
oh,
basically they were starting to get, well, was it?
oh, I was going to
Well,
say,
they were
so,
nervous when I started.
yeah, yeah.
They were nervous when I started my documentary, whether I was going to start, oh, you know, cops, which I don't, you know what I mean? Because I think, like I said, what happens is I'm not looking for any, you know, enemies like that. You know, I could have told on a lot of people, but I never did. I've never
Yeah.
testified against anybody. Whenever I committed my crimes, I paid my debts. Like I said, when I went to prison, I learned from my mistake. I decided that wasn't what I was going to. I wasn't going to turn on people and start rolling on people, and that's why a lot of people support me is because I kept it real. I was solid, I wasn't number one in the street. I wasn't the kingpin in the street, but I was rolling with some big guys that were doing heavy things. And I didn't, fold up and sell them out. And a lot of people doubted, because they didn't, realize, to what extent that I was doing things. Some people knew, but they weren't really sure. Some people speculated. And then, when I got out, like I said, and I started changing, I went into like a redemption mode because I knew I didn't want to leave my children. I had an autistic son. I had my second daughter. We were getting ready to have our third. I had 3 children, by the way, with my wife. Been together for 10 years. I haven't been in trouble in over 10 years. I work a
Good.
great job 6 days a week.
That's
Yeah,
good.
thank you. And yeah, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or anything because, I'm not perfect. But I was going through a lot of horrible things and everything the odds were against. I lost 2 of my best friends there in the struggle. I've seen a lot of people get killed.
You almost
I got
lost your
involved
life.
with some.
I
Yeah,
mean, you
yeah.
got shot
And
11
I got friends
times.
that are doing. Yeah,
I mean,
and
can
some of
you?
those reasons were
I was gonna ask you, can you break those
well.
down? Like how many were them
So
on
the first
separate
time that I
occasions?
got shot, yeah, absolutely. Because some people want to know those things, and they ask me, and I have no problem confirming anything because anything that I've done, I have, there's some things that I'm not proud of, but I have no problem, telling the truth and being honest about it. Well, the first time that I was shot, I think I was like 17 or 8. I was, like I said, involved with the street gang, 12 street players. We were fighting with the opposing gang, the Latin counts, and we were fighting over the territory. In my neighborhood, we went through a gentrification period, which is where, like I said, growing up, it was Italians, Irish, it was mostly the white area. Latinos from the Chicago area started immigrating in and kind of like coming into Cicero. So when the Latino gang came in, they had their block, we had our block, and eventually people don't want to share the same area. It's either ours or theirs. And over the time, they started buying houses up, and that was accumulated in the area. So there was our numbers dwindled. Then it got to the point where they wanted the neighborhood. They eventually took it over. And I mean, nowadays it's a lot different. Those guys aren't around. And a lot of guys that I ran with do own businesses there, so that's the good thing. There's really no gang area in that, no more hood. There used to be a hood, now it's, everything, it's all mixed up. The gangs aren't like what they used to be. Now it's a lot of internet stuff and not like it was like back in the day. Back in the day, everybody had an area, block, neighborhood, and it went by that, and depending on what, go by race. Some are mixed. Nowadays, they're all mixed, especially in my area. Guys that I belong with, white, Latino, everything. When I was growing up, only Italians, Irish, mostly whites. There's a few Mexican guys, a few black guys, but not many. And it wasn't because they were racist or nothing. It was just because that's who grew up in the neighborhood, where we were. Nowadays, it's all mixed up. So the first time that I got shot was by these guys. I got set up by a female. She, playing both sides, told them our location that we were going to, and we were going to go drinking. And I hear spray painting. And of course, I, approach them, represent. Guy pulls out a gun, starts shooting, hits me in the neck, goes through, in and out. Guy takes off running. I go to the hospital. It's not too serious.
You didn't have to go
It's
to the
an in and
hospital?
out gunshot. Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Oh,
they
you
had to
did.
do a surgery, but it was nothing major though. I mean, they did a little surgery, but I was out of the hospital in 20.
Jesus. What
I
about
was
the
in
second time?
yeah.
So what happened with the second time when you got shot?
So the second time that I got shot, I was in a car with a girlfriend of mine. We were in the neighborhood, same area. You know, like I said, at this time, there was a lot that fighting between us and the Latin counts escalated really high, point where, you know, these guys want to kill me, you know, because I'm shooting at them. You know, I don't really, maybe shot one or two, I'm not sure. I know I didn't kill any of their guys, but I was definitely shooting at their guys, and I believe I shot one or two of them, and they basically had it marked out for me. And I had a brother that like about a year younger than me. So these guys really wanted me. You know, there wasn't a whole bunch of my guys. It was only a small crew of my guys. And I was number one target for them. And like I said, they had already shot me once, and, you know, they were trying to finish it. And, you know, I'm driving around in the neighborhood like and, you know, I'm checking out where they're at, location. I drive past and they had spotted me. So I'm telling my girlfriend at the time, you know, just be careful, because they might come out of nowhere. And sure enough, we get to the stop sign, and we're pretty far now. You know, I'm thinking that I'm in the clear and that, you know, they're not gonna, you know, come after me. And for some reason, you know, I got comfortable thinking that, you know, we were far enough away from where I had spotted these guys. And I get to a stop sign, and all of a sudden I hear a loud boom. And it's a back windshield of the car, and I'm blown out by a bullet. And the bullet goes through and hits me in the back of the head. And it kind of slid up my head. Yeah. And I got lucky. They had ripped my skull and kind of like grazed me, but it went in. But it didn't penetrate through the skull. And I'm bleeding profusely everywhere at this point. The girl's screaming about her fucking window. You know,
that's what she's worried about.
Yeah, she has to explain to her father. And I'm like, so she takes me to the hospital. You know, I get over there and, you know, they patch me up. I give them a story because, you know, now they're going to call the police and want to know what happened and how this all went down. And, you know, you can't tell them all that. So whatever it was, they don't believe it. You know, they let me out. And then maybe a few years later, you know, because I'm in and out of the streets, you know, running around doing gang shit, robberies, burglaries, everything. Man, there was no limit, no boundary for me. Anything that was for the taking, that was what I wanted. Anything with excitement, that was what I was gravitated towards. Anything criminal, that's what I like. That was what was driving me. Oh. And third time it was a drug transaction and a robbery, kind of burglary. And what had happened was I got greedy, and you never go back to the scene of the crime. And I did, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And when I was going back into the house, the guy had came back, and he was actually waiting. Oh, as soon as I went to go back to go into the house, it was locked. I knew at that point somebody had obviously, you know, I had been found that, you know, so my instinct was turn around and run. I started running out of this house, which I had robbed. They were drug dealers. It was drug dealers, and I knew where the stash spot was. Oh, that was what I had stole, some money and some drugs and other stuff. And I kept going back for more and more because there was a lot of stuff in there. And when I got greedy, like I said, finally I somehow got notification or came home, whatever it was. I take off running down the alley. He fires down the alley. It hits me in the side of the head. I don't know if it's
kind of a bald spot, right?
it. Right.
Yeah,
He hits me. Yeah. So I get shot in the head. It was like a baseball bat. Thinking, I didn't know at that point that I was shot. I thought I got hit with a bat. Like he came out of a gangway and got me with a bat, but it was a gun. And I just fell to the ground, barely, not all the way, because my adrenaline was kicking in. I'm thinking, this guy's gonna kill me, like finish. And that was the only thing that was going through my head is like, you know, you're not gonna leave this guy. gotta finish me at this point. Otherwise, he's going in jail. So he gotta kill me.
Yeah.
And I somehow just, when adrenaline kicks in, he didn't pursue me. And I just took off going through it anyways, and I get away. And I go to the hospital. Yeah. And I stopped at somebody's house, and I'm trying to explain to them that I got shot. They kind of threw me out because they didn't want no involvement. And I'm bleeding everywhere. Yeah. They didn't want no involvement. There's drugs in their house. So they're like, so this other guy decides that he's going to walk. Right. So he takes me to the hospital. I get to the hospital. Like I said, I was only a graze. He knocked the chunk out of my head. But it was a 10 millimeter. I don't know if you know what a 10 is like, but it's like a big slug. I only knew that because while I was in the hospital, I called my brother about me being shot by this guy that had robbed and stuff. We're thinking about retaliating probably. And we did it because there were a lot of circumstances. There were kids involved in the house. And, I didn't want to do that. I was wrong for what I was doing, so I took what I had, and just let it go for a short time. And basically, I told my brother that I got shot. He goes to the scene where it happens, and sure enough, there's a shell on the ground. It's a 10 millimeter, so that's how I knew. So that's my third shooting. And my second shooting, the third shooting, was I got shot twice in the car that time. And then the fourth time, that was the last time that I got shot. It was opposing gang member, Latin County.
Hope you kind of cut out. Can you repeat that? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Just well, like I said, I'll edit all that shit out. When it cuts out. But you were saying, okay, so the fourth time you got shot, what happened?
So this is the fourth and final time that I got shot, which much started the wake up. So the fourth time I get shot, my mother's with me, and that she lets me out. She says, "Don't get shot." Joking around because of all the time that I had been shot. I get out of the car. I'm with a few of my buddies. We were feuding with this other opposition gang over territory. We go after them. So we're the aggressors. We go after them. They go running, flying around in cars. We can't catch them. We go back to the neighborhood. I'm sitting on the block. I'm sitting in the car. I'm not even thinking about what had just occurred. Our pool's right on the side of me. Unloading. I'm right there. I lift my hand, take 2 or 3 to the side, 1 into the arm, out of the car, a couple more bullets in the stomach. I walk up, try to ring the doorbell, get the ambulance to come. At this point, now I know that I got a few bullets all over me. I think it was like 6 bullets at this, 3 in the side and 3 in the stomach. And I'm thinking, this is it. I'm going to die. I remember getting in the ambulance and then pulling up, bleeding profusely. And they're saying that I got multiple gunshots, looking out the back window. And then next thing I know, of course, I go into surgery. I wake up feeling horrible because I got all these bullets in my stomach. And I don't know if you've been shot or anybody's been shot, but gunshots are painful. And they're like hot, penetrating metal. And just imagine scalding hot metal. Then afterwards, just all the tissues and stuff, it's like worst kind of soreness you could ever feel in your life. And the stomach muscles are constantly moving. So the amount of pain that I was going through in the hospital was unbelievable. It was so painful that I remember telling them, because they run an NG tube through my nose, and I just kind of didn't want to keep going through it. I'm like, I've had enough. What's my alternative? Like, well, we might have to, you'll die, because they wanted this tube to keep down me. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want this. It's just very painful. Yeah. And that's bad. That's horrible. You got to make a decision like that. But that's the amount of pain that I was in. and they had me on all kinds of painkillers and stuff. Like, it was just unbelievable amount of pain. And that was the thing that I always remember about my last gunshot, was all the pain from bullets going in my stomach and being in the hospital, to the point where I was ready just to die. It was that amount of pain. Luckily, and then they had this NG tube that I couldn't keep down. Like, so it goes through your nose into your stomach, because they didn't want me to use my stomach. I had to keep it empty for it to heal. And they had a feeding tube in me. And it just irritated and bothered me to the point where I was gagging. It's just so uncomfortable. Like, and I pulled it out probably 20 times, to the point where, yeah, they were really frustrated, because now, when you know anything about procedures, a doctor has to, or like a nurse, you can't just assist and do it. So it's a pretty, they got to time consume from other patients, and they had to do it 20 times. They were just to the point, and he finally gave me, the ultimatum of, either you're going to keep it in your nose, or we're going to strap you down. And they were going to strap me down. But I ended up keeping it in long enough to let my muscles heal. And then I pulled it out again. But they decided eventually just keep me off of it. And I got lucky. It was horrible, man. I was like, wow, I don't know how people go through that.
You were
And like I
a
said,
really lucky guy to make it through all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I had so many chances. Yeah, and I had lost so many people along the way. Just like I said, once my kids got involved and stuff, I had to start cutting out more things. And then I started doing, because people are like, hey, you should do a book. And I started doing one while I was in prison, but I didn't know then where it was going to go. And so I started it, and I just never got it edited or published. So then, through social media and stuff, I start reaching out, telling more people about my story. It kind of put me on like a platform where now I had to change. Now people were seeing me in a public light, like, you're a father. And then, of course, like I said, I married into a law enforcement family. My wife's family, her sister, was the third when I got sentenced. So, they actually were really nice and welcoming for me, because I didn't think they were going to be like they were. And they gave me the opportunity to prove myself. And I did that in the same town where I had committed all these crimes. And my brother-in-law was under so much pressure, because now his people that he worked with, his friends, are officers. So now I have to keep it respectful, because I can't go and start bashing police, and I can't start talking about, because it's just not going to be good. So I never did that, and I do support them, because my brother-in-law, like I said, he's out. And, he just opened the door for me, got me a job. I did that for 3 years. I had to humble myself. And by doing that, of course, like I said, I was in adult games until when I first started doing it. Then I gave it up, because my job got, wind of me doing this. And instead of like me going to jail, I got a different job in a different location. And it was pretty much, my time to stop doing what I was doing. But at the facility I was going to be working, that wasn't going to be acceptable. I wasn't going to do that to people who helped me. So I gave that up. And then I ended up with a great job, and it gave me an opportunity so that I didn't have to do those things. And then I got involved with Teamsters. So I was in a secure place. My wife's happy. I'm working every day. People are looking up to me. I got little brothers, younger brothers that are being influenced. And like I said, my younger brother was influenced by me, and it took him down the wrong path. And he still struggles with that. And he's probably younger than me, but he's, hopefully changing. We don't talk anymore, because, sometimes you just have to cut people off. It's not good for you. It's not good. And we had to just kind of break ways, and that's horrible with brothers. Like I said, me and him were back in the streets, like doing a lot of dirt, shooting, like that. And I mean, I feel bad now, because my brother lost his life. I did influence him in the wrong way and affect him. And then I have a three younger brothers. Luckily, they're all doing good. One of them struggles, moved to California. He was in Chicago, really deep. He had to prove himself.
Yeah.
Not just me, but my other brother, live up to our standard. And I started seeing this stuff and my friends. So they have kids and their kids got into the life.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's
then,
a rough place that you grew up in, so I mean, it's, it drags people into it like that, especially young kids.
yeah, yeah. And then when I see my friends get like boatloads of time, and then one of their kids, sadly, I had one of my friends, who I've seen since he was a baby, he ends up dying.
Yeah.
So that was tough on me. Having three kids of my own, and I love this kid. Kid meant the world. Want him to follow, same footsteps as me, get him in the union, but he still wanted to be in the streets. And he ended up getting shot in the head and killed. That was enough for me, because I started thinking about like when I do podcasts and when I do like promote my book and my documentary and stuff like that. Like what do I want? What type of message do I want to send? Do I want to brag about, all the bad things I did? And, because really that doesn't get you anywhere. I mean, you could be in the dope game, but there's always going to be somebody that's going to tell on you, somebody that's going to hate on you, get jealous of you. It's like a no-win situation, and there's a price to pay for that life,
What is the message of your documentary?
That, that no matter how far you go and how many mistakes you've made, that you can always turn it around.
Yeah.
Because me, of all people, they would never believe that amount of stuff that I was. There was people, oh, he wasn't nothing. He wasn't doing nothing. Hey, I know my name's Stevie Bullets. I know that. I know I had to earn that name. I know that I know the things that I did. I don't have to brag about those things, but I know that I'm 43 years old and that I had 3 kids. I own a house. I have 2 cars. I work a good job. I haven't been in trouble in 10 years.
Yeah, that's good. When is the documentary coming out?
Yeah, no, I'm not about gangster life and bragging about that, because if you're the big homie, you're the big guy, you're running shit, that only lasts for so long.
Right.
There's no loyalty like that. I learned that. I thought there was, and that's the reason that I was so influenced by these guys. I realized, it's everybody for themselves, and you can't believe that that isn't true, because I know for a fact, because there were guys that I would have killed for them. If they would have said, hey, put a gun in my hand, I would have killed for them, no doubt. I've shot people less, And when these guys and the guys that I grew up with, if they told you to do something, you did it. And if you didn't do it, you get your ass beat really bad, And they weren't playing, because these guys. So the guys that I grew up with were structured. Some of their fathers were involved, some of their uncles were involved, and they were influenced the same way. So they ran the game the same pretty way, and consequences were real severe. So what they call them is violations. So when you break a rule of the game, all the violations. Normally in different games, at this beating for a minute, 2 minutes. For us, it was a lot worse. These guys were getting beat to an inch of their life. Yeah, it was horrible, man. But that was just the way the structure was. I mean, it was a small crew, but they were brutal. Not all of them. There were some cowards in there, but there were some real brutal dudes. These dudes were the guys that were older than me, kind of like structured, molded me to the person that I was. So going through those things that I had went through, and having these guys like in my neighborhood and above me, and kind of influencing me, indirectly and directly. Some of them, we didn't hang out together or nothing, but I knew who they were. And those were the guys that I looked up to, and those are the guys that I wanted to be like.
Right.
And I started, and that's what happened was when I was going in and out of the system, I start connecting with these guys. I knew not to fuck with the young guy. I went to see the chief, the older guys, like the top guys. And those were the dudes that I wanted to associate with and talk to. And that started when I was going into the prison system. And, you know, when you're in prison, you know, you're at your top, you're, you know, working out, your mind is straight, you don't have drugs and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'd be on top of them. Yeah. And well, that was good for me because I knew how to conduct myself. And when I started conducting myself like that in prison, I started getting respect from these guys. And I started thinking, you know, if I can get these guys in here in the prison to respect me like that, imagine what I can do in the streets. And I didn't necessarily mean that in a bad way. I meant
Yeah.
that in a good way. Now that's what I do, you know. Like I said, you know, I still associate with some of my guys. I don't do the same things that they do. I haven't abandoned them. And I always give them options, you know, if they want to be involved, you know, filming and talking about their life. You know, some of them aren't ready. And then some of them are. And then some of them are unsure because, you know, they don't know if they want to go out. But, you know, like I said, I got guys that are in jail that I still talk to. I don't cut them off. I send them a little money. I accept a few phone calls,
That's good.
you
You
know,
still help them all
and
out, and you give them opportunities
yeah,
for when they come
I
out,
try.
and, like with the documentary,
I
just trying to put them in the right direction and everything, so I mean, it sounds like, you're still doing a lot of good stuff, and the story's not done. Like I said, you got so much more to do. And, I don't know, man. I really loved hearing your story. And, I don't know if you want to do another one of these. I mean, if you want to
yeah,
do a
yeah,
part two, because I know we can go into depth. Because what I've heard with your other
yeah,
interviews, dude, I really want to do a part two. I mean, hell, we could even do four. I mean, it's just
yeah,
however
yeah.
much you got, what I mean?
Yeah, see what happens, throw it out there and see, you know, how many views you get. And if they like it, we'll continue,
Yeah.
you know, go from there.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man. Did you want to leave the people with anything where they can find you or anything like that?
So I have Facebook, uh, My Way, the Cicero Way, Stevie Bullets story, TikTok, StevieBullets12. I got an Instagram account, StevieBullets12, I believe. Got some content on YouTube under Stevie Bullets podcast if you want to check that out. Shout out to Chant with Stacks. Stacks is the one that kind of put me on to the podcast, and Cyril DiPaggio down in Miami. That's one of my guys down there doing Mob King. He's got some content, mob content, which is really good and interesting. He's got some
Yeah.
other yeah, there's a lot of guys out there that are actually networking with me and doing a lot of stuff. The producers on mine are James Forney and did a small role with Joey Seifert film called Deadly Associates. If you want to check that out, he's got a
Yeah.
book also about the Chicago outfit and his father's involvement with Boy Lombardo. We call him the Clown. He was a notorious crime figure in the Chicago outfit here. He just recently passed away a few years ago and got a life sentence in a family secret trial. You know, you can check all that out on the internet. And thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And you had a really great story, incredible story, and like I said, your documentary is going to be awesome. I can, like, as you're a good storyteller, not like in a disrespectful way. It's like saying like those stories that you said when you got shot and shit, like I could envision, all this shit, like the gunshots, the robbery, going in, the trying to get in this person's house, like you're very descriptive. You can really paint a picture, what I mean? So I think when you get this documentary out and the book and everything, I think it's going to be incredible, man. And I definitely got to
Thank
get
you.
a book, what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And we're gonna have our last photo film, and it's gonna be like in May. So you'll start seeing more around May, and I'll put that out there. And you know, I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good. You
I
know,
think
and
so
then
too.
there's a bunch of other avenues we're gonna go after that. You know, we got a book. Hopefully that goes through with Chip. His name is Chip McGregor. He's a true crime agent.
Oh, okay.
And then the documentary with James Forney, and then you know, like all these podcasts. it just opens up a lot of doors and stuff. Hopefully that'll influence other people that, want to do something and talk about their story and, see what happens.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, man. Let me hit end
All
on
right.
here.
All right. Thank you.
Oh shoot. Let me hit